Start it. Good evening. I now call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Apache Junction. Today's date is October 11th, 2022. The time is 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Rudy, can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Barker.
Here.
Commissioner Begeman.
Here.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Here.
Chairman Hanchey.
Here.
Commissioner Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
Sixth President, we have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. Consideration and approval of the agenda and the minutes for the September 27th, 2022 regular meeting. Can I get a motion?
Chair.
Commissioner Cross?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented and approve the minutes from the September 27th, 2022 regular meeting.
Second.
Rudy, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Chairman Hanchey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. Let's see, we got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 items. No, 4 items. 2, 3, 4. 4 items. All right. First one, 22-639, presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration of case P-21-99-PZ, a proposed plan development major amendment of the high-density multifamily resident by plan development RM-2/PD zone property at 94 West Roundup Street, parcels 100-31-01C as in Charlie, 100-31-017D as in Delta, and 100-31-017B as in Bravo, located at the northwest corner of Idaho and Roundup Street for the development of 3 two-story fourplex apartment buildings.
All right, good evening, Commission members. My name is Kelsey Shatnick. I am a planner on staff, and tonight's presentation is a plan development major amendment request of the property at 94 West Roundup Street. The property is located at near the northwest corner of Roundup in Idaho and is currently zoned high-density multiple-family residential by plan development, or RM2PD. This property currently consists of 3 separate parcels, and the request is the approval of a plan development major amendment to construct 3 two-story fourplex apartment buildings. In terms of the surrounding zoning, to the north, south, and west, you have properties zoned RM2PD, which is the Apache Junction townhomes. And then to the east, you have some RSGR property as well as property zoned PI, which is where the library is located. So here's a proposed site plan as well as the landscape plan for the property. Sorry, it's a little difficult to see. It's very long, skinny property, so I did the best I could. So you can see that there are 3 individual lots. So this is 1 lot, 2 lots, and 3 lots. Each lot contains 1 fourplex building. And then on the westernmost lot, there is a shared amenity space, which includes barbecue area, tot lot, ramada. Each unit contains a 1-car garage as well as 1 paved space and additional space for parking within the driveway. Here are the proposed elevations for the site. As you can see, there are multiple material types being incorporated into the design, including tiled roof, stucco, as well as stone. And the colors were chosen as well as material types to complement the surrounding development of the Apache Junction townhomes. Here's just another view of that elevation kind of from the side to get all angles. terms of public input, a neighborhood meeting was held on October 28th, 2021. A sign was posted at the site. Notices were sent out to property owners within 300 feet, and the case was advertised in the newspaper. Staff received 2 calls regarding this request. One of the calls, a neighbor was not in favor of the development, had concerns about the 2-story nature and safety, and the other individual had questions regarding the layout of the units. They had questions on, was it going to be 2-story having one unit on top of each other, or was it going to be each unit was going to be 2 stories? And I wasn't able to get into direct contact with them, but I did leave them a message explaining that it would be each unit would have 2 stories where the living space and kitchen is on the bottom with the bedrooms on top. So in terms of staff analysis, this project has kind of taken a little bit of time to get here because we have had some concerns with the development from the beginning and have been working with the applicant in order to kind of get the best outcome. The first concern we had was with the 2-story design of the building being really close to the 1-story units of the Apache Junction townhomes, but we worked with the developer to be able to reduce the right-of-way a little bit, push the units a little bit closer, and they are meeting that 20-foot minimum required setback. We have also worked with them to plant, guarantee that they would plant a minimum of 36-inch box trees along that northern property boundary to kind of create a privacy fence between the 2 developments. The next concern that we had was regarding perpetual maintenance. Typically with apartment buildings, we would see they'd come in, combine all of the properties into one, and it would function as one unit. Due to the way that the applicant is going to finance this, they're actually going to stay 3 separate properties. So through our conditions of approval, we have ensured that the buildings would be maintained in the same way to ensure that the landscaping, is always equally maintained across the 3 properties, that the tot lot's maintained, that shared common space as well as retention and everything is kind of kept maintained equally throughout those 3 owners. So although it is the intent of the applicant to build and to be the, and kind of maintain all of the properties, it is very feasible in 5-10 years that each property could be owned by someone different. So we've kind of created a safeguard within our ordinance to ensure that it is maintained depending on, or regardless of who owns it. And then the third concern we had was with parking. So with every residential property and project that's kind of come along, I know parking has been a big concern. So just with the site constraints and it being very narrow, not a lot of room to work with, they are including, like I said, a 1-car garage, enough driveway space to have another car behind it, as well as an additional paved space. So they are meeting the minimum requirement, and I believe it is also the intent that overflow parking could park along Roundup Street because it is a public roadway. We additionally had kind of talked about, well, what if we striped out spaces, but the request of the city engineer, don't stripe it out, but people can still use it for overflow parking. It just can't count towards their minimum requirement. So along with the HOA that will be developed by the developer and the CC&Rs that come along with that, staff recommends approval of P-21-99-PZ, subject to the conditions of approval found within the staff report. There was one updated condition that I kind of wanted to bring to your attention that has slightly changed since I submitted the staff report, and that is project-specific condition number 5. So it's a long condition that I'm not going to read to you, but basically it deals with the maintenance of the drainage and retention areas on site. So the original language had kind of made a note that if it's not reasonably maintained by the property owners, that the city could come in and do it at the cost of the developer to clean it out. And the applicant just wanted to know, to have a little bit more clarification on what reasonably meant. Yeah. So we've gone through and added clearing of weeds, debris, trash, those sorts of things, to just make it a little bit more clear for us now and any owners in the future to what that would mean. So this item will have a work session with the City Council on October 31st, and then it is scheduled for a public hearing on November 15th. With that, that concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions you might have, and the applicant is here as well.
Is the applicant gonna give a presentation, or is this it?
They could come up and kind of give a
I'm
brief
just asking if
presentation.
they were planning on it.
No, not unless you requested something.
Okay.
Chelsea,
Commissioner Barker?
is the amendment to number 5 included in the motion, or is it something we need to add?
Joel, are you able to?
I don't see it in the conditions, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I've read the language too, and it doesn't state what
It just says reasonably
Right.
with no,
You should probably add them in a motion, add that language.
So it's just updating. So most of the language within the staff report is there. It's just that, yeah, it changed a little bit since the staff report was submitted to you.
right, so what did you want to add?
That stuff that was in the yellow. Can you go
Yeah,
back
it's
to that
it's
slide?
highlighted.
Right,
Right there, everything in
thank
the
you.
yellow.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, everything in yellow is new. The white is the same as what
That's it.
was in your report.
Okay. Thank you, Chelsea.
Kelsey, how long, or how big are the driveways? I had a hard time reading it, and I couldn't, even at home.
I wrote it down, 29 by 27. So there should be plenty of space to fit, one car here. The only concern that the fire district had regarding these spaces was just they need to keep 20 feet here so that these renters know that they can't encroach within that space. So that was kind of the only comment from the fire on that lot.
Will that be marked as like a fire lane then?
Yes,
or-
yeah, they're requiring no parking signage
Okay.
along this area.
Okay. Commissioner?
Yeah, I've got, you mentioned that there was going to be some kind of HOA agreement when this is done, so it'd be an AOA agreement or something, I don't know. Apartment owner agreement instead of a homeowner agreement?
Yeah, so there will be an HOA created. as
Okay,
part
so I didn't see that in the conditions. Is it in there somewhere or not?
It's not within the conditions. That's something that we've agreed to with the applicant. And the conditions are, a little bit more detailed than you typically kind of see because HOAs can dissolve over time. So this
Right.
is kind of our safeguard to ensure that even though that they're going to be essentially maintaining everything, that we still have something if that were to dissolve.
Okay. And that agreement will ensure that if these 3 properties are split up, the maintenance around them will be done consistently for all 3 of the buildings. Is that the
Yes,
intent?
correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Commissioner Cantwell?
2 questions. These are apartments rather than townhomes?
Yes.
Okay,
So they're
'cause I'm
rentals.
Not used to HOAs for apartments.
Yeah, and that's kind of why, with the unique nature of the development, we've requested they take that extra step to ensure maintenance, and then we have also included it within our conditions, so
And so this would actually be 3 HOAs,
No.
one HOA covering all
all
3
all
parcels.
12 units.
Yes,
And then the extra parking is between the 2 buildings. So there's 2 parking areas, and that's what, 5 slots each or something? It's hard to see.
I think
believe.
6,
I didn't know if one was handicapped.
Will they still count it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's essentially, so if you don't include the driveway and the 1-car garage, each parcel has 4 paved marked spaces. So again, I know it's kind of difficult to see, but so there's
So
4
theoretically, each unit has 3 parking places. One in the garage, one on the driveway, and one in the other area.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Cantwell, just a slight clarification. It won't be an HOA. It'll be more of a property maintenance agreement between property owners.
I was, HOA was used in the,
Right.
that's what was throwing me off.
Commissioner Cross is next.
Chelsea? So couple different areas. They talked about screening the properties to the north with different types of trees.
Yes.
What is the final choice of tree? Is it going to be a deciduous tree that loses all of its leaves through the winter? Or is it going to be a tree that maintains its foliage and thus creates that privacy screening?
So right now, they are proposing a ghost gum tree. So it's not going to be a big tree that, loses all of its leaves during different times of the year, especially because I know that the surrounding, they didn't want to create maintenance for their neighbors. So to have a bunch of leaves falling into their neighbor's property that they would then have to maintain, and then you would lose the privacy as well.
And what do they do after 5, 10, 8 years, whatever, when the landscaper comes through and just completely butchers that tree and turns it back down to a stick with no branches, and it looks ugly for months or a year or two?
So they could request that, because it would be in the approved plans that they have to replace that tree. So if you
Well,
had to.
you know how landscapers, sometimes they'll go through and they'll do major maintenance on trees and just cut them all the way back to the main trunk, per se, and then they bush out even thicker than before. But usually they do that after the tree is already creating that privacy, because I had that happen to us, and it's really unfortunate when it happens, and you get stuck in my case, looking at an Arby's for 6 to 10 months before it leafed back out enough. So.
Commissioner Cross, that's a great question, and I think it's probably be better appropriate for the applicant. We could defer that question to the applicant, and perhaps they have a strategy for that.
Are you done?
Yep.
Commissioner Barker?
Chelsea, under the specific conditions, number 4, you have refuse. So are each of these units going to be private as far as contracting with the garbage service, et cetera, or is this entire thing going to be serviced?
I believe this entire thing will be serviced. It's just they will have individual bins as opposed to one large dumpster. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the 2 dumpsters that are down at the circle are just extra then? There's 2 dumpsters
Oh,
at the very
I think so.
apex of the circle.
Yes, so these are here, I think, to show and demonstrate where they would be placed, because that was something we discussed with them, saying, well, if you place them on this area of the street, then you'd be blocking units and they could fall over and people wouldn't be able to park. So this was just a demonstration on where they could tell people to place the units or the dumpsters.
Commissioner Cross?
So, speaking of the cul-de-sac, will there be parking allowed in the curvature of the cul-de-sac? Or will that be maintained as a no parking zone so that the trash truck can actually turn around without having to do a 8-point turn? Or fire department, et cetera, being able to access and get back out?
So fire hasn't personally expressed any concerns about there being parking within this area, but that's definitely something we could discuss with them if we wanted to ensure that there was enough clearance for a truck as well as dumpsters. But I think the main intent would be that people could park along this area of Roundup.
Right.
Commissioner Cantwell?
Kelsey, I don't know if this is for you or Sydney, but this management structure that we're talking about here just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Normally, if it's an apartment, there is a management company that is in charge of renting the apartments and maintaining everything, and they have the responsibility for everything. Here, it sounds like you're talking about the residents will have the responsibility for some of the maintenance. Is that the case, or?
So this would be, it would be the responsibility of the property owners to maintain the property. So we were approaching it a little bit differently because in theory, we could, instead of having one property owner who maintains everything, there could be 3. So that was kind of the approach to things, but it is the responsibility of the property owner to maintain it.
Okay.
Does that include, Kelsey, does that include the backyards as well?
Yes, yeah.
there'll be-
All of the landscaping, irrigation, shared common space.
Then also, how big are these? What is the setback, well, total space from the back of the buildings to the property line?
So the back of buildings, it is a 20-foot setback, so it is 20 feet from the building to the existing wall.
And then how close are the neighboring units on the other side of that wall?
I am not familiar with the setbacks for that property.
I believe they're 10 to 15.
10?
Mhm.
Put it 30 feet. Anybody else have any questions? I'm good. Can we get I think we would need the builder up here, because there's a few questions, so.
Okay.
Trees.
Thank you, Kelsey. We'll get to the public in a sec, after we're done with this. Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Karen Heaps, and I'm the landscape architect for this project. So I'm happy to answer questions about the trees.
All right.
There was something about maintenance, right?
Maintenance, choice of tree, whether it's going to be, you mentioned it was a gum tree, so eucalyptus, they don't shed all their leaves all at once. They stay pretty well leafed out most of the year. The concern is landscapers on a regular basis like to butcher back trees so that they grow stronger at the trunk and less likely to shed a branch off, which I get. But at the same time, you're calling out for these trees to be a screen for the neighbors to the north. And if the landscapers are going through there every couple years, cutting the trees way back and letting them grow back out, it's hardly a screening type device. So your input would be appreciated.
I am not a maintenance person, but I have seen that practice. And the only thing I could say to it is we pick trees that are fairly tall rather than wide. Usually they're trying to keep the branches from going into the other property. And they're also very willowy. They're not, strong branches going out. They're very willowy. So I would say, if I was the person looking at pruning, I wouldn't do so much pruning because you don't need it. A large branch is not necessarily going to develop and come down.
Okay.
Does that help?
To a degree, I understand the concept of the tree. I just do realize that landscapers take a different viewpoint. And they're, so.
Yeah. Was there any other specific question about the tree?
Yeah, I have one. They're gonna be 24-inch box.
36.
Or
36.
36. How tall are they gonna be to start out with then?
In a 36-inch box, these tend to grow pretty fast. And again, I can't guarantee what the market is right now. It's just crazy. But they're probably going to be about 5 feet. They probably won't quite make it over the wall.
Okay.
But in a couple years, they should be 10 to 15 feet tall. They grow quite fast when they're,
So you're saying
the
5
ground.
foot a year?
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, once they get in the ground, they grow a lot faster.
Right. No, I just want clarification on record for that.
Yeah, there will be no screen for a little while.
No, for the first
Couple years, 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
What's the spacing gonna be on these trees?
We have them, I think, at 20 feet. Do you remember what? We were trying to get 2 in each backyard, so that was the determinant for the spacing. But I'm pretty sure we have them between 20 and 25 feet.
Okay.
And then, what's their dimensions at maturity?
They would be about 25 feet wide and 30 feet tall. They're not giants. They're right there where they should always give a screen.
Any other question? All right, I don't think there's any other questions at this time.
Okay, thank you.
We sure we want to move on to the public? No other questions? Then we'll have to reopen, and I just want to make sure, which we can if we need to, but if we can avoid it, I'd like to make sure. All right. Seeing how this is a public hearing, I'm going to now call to order the opening of the public section. Does anybody wish to speak at this time? One of you, one at a time, please come up, state your name and address, speak into the mic. You can help her, yes. I said, yes, you can help.
My name is Goldine Knudsen. I live in the first home on Rosa Street, right
Can you state
behind
the address?
45 West Rosa.
Thank you.
And Linda, I would hope would stand up here with me. She lives 2 doors down where the 79 West Rosa Street, where the first of the second building would be. So these are directly behind our homes. And first of all, we knew nothing about this at all until the sign went up about 2 weeks ago on that property. We knew nothing last year, nothing was sent to us or anything.
Ma'am, you can speak on your own on the.
Or no sign posted or anything. You know, like a year ago, the last we heard, it had been sold, and there was going to be 3 homes, 1 on each of those lots. We knew the gentleman that's there. I have been there since day 1 when Apache Junction Townhomes opened, and I was able to choose that first lot. I have been around to all of my neighbors, and we are all on a lease to own, where we will all own those within the next 5 years, that have the option to buy them. And we have been maintaining and, you know, our properties, and I know that when it went through the city council here before, there was a lot of things about before they allowed them to be built. We are living in, our homes are 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-stall garage, and we have a backyard patio that goes out. Our wall is 10 feet in back of our house, and we have a 10-foot backyard across there. There are also trees, shrubs, bushes, whatever you want to call them, on the other side of our walls that are protecting us on that empty space there. But that is a very narrow space in there. And the biggest objection we have to those 2-story buildings is that there are, I have ours here, there are 12 of our places, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-stall garage, backyards, There are 12 of these on that same allotted space there. And they're single level, and we're horrified about the two-story level built apartments yet, because there's going to be so much traffic and turnover and congestion and everything in that small area. And there's only been one path in and out of there. There could very well be built very nice single-level homes like we have that aren't going to be squishing two-story levels in the middle of everything that's around that area is single-level homes. So it would keep it more unified. It would look nicer for the whole neighborhood and the whole area. And we are horrified about our privacy, because every single two-story, that second story, is going to be looking right into our bedroom windows and our backyards. We are going to be losing all of our privacy, all of it. And the only thing I could think of is, if you will not do something to try and get one-level ones in there, and they have to be two-story, is that they can't have windows in that facing our side. If they want to put floor-to-ceiling windows in the front and the sides of their properties, have at it. But we will have no privacy. And in apartments, who knows how long they're going to be in there, in and out and in and out. And what she just said is each one is going to be owned by a different one. The continuity of that down the road and of the, them staying the same and maintaining the same, I don't see it. The trees they were talking about, we already have 6-foot shrubs in back of our places as barriers. We're going to lose everything. And it's going to take down the property values of the area if you're going to stick apartments in there instead of town. I don't know why they couldn't build condos or townhomes to be rented out, single-level ones. We have 12 of them in that same spot along there. And they're sufficient. They're all over 1,100 square feet. Most of us have been there since day one, or within, at least, we're going on 10 years now that we've been there. I don't know what to say, but this is horrifying for all of us there. We have tried taking pride in what was built there and are thankful for it, because most of us that are in there are older people that have somehow had bad circumstances in our lives and have had to go to, the lease-to-own housing that it was built for, and we're too old to start over or move again or something, and we are taking pride in trying to keep our properties up. And if you put apartments in there, and two-story ones at that, I was told that they're going to be market rate value, but market rate value doesn't mean that, well, if they're two-story and market rate value, there isn't anybody that's older that's going to be more conscientious about how they take care of the property in there, because they can't walk up and down, we can't walk up and down steps anymore. And there's no elevators going to the second level, and all the bedrooms are up on that level, and we're losing everything.
Yeah. All right, ma'am, you're limited to 5 minutes. I'm going to have to ask you to
Okay.
step down and let the next
I'll
one.
let her
Does our timer not work, Rudy?
speak.
Mr. Chairman, I can't figure out how to work the clock. I'm trying to keep track of time on
Thank
the
you.
counter.
Thank you, and just let us know.
Yes, yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
I'm going to keep it short. My name is Linda Thomas. I live at 79 West Rosa. We do have the opportunity of March of 2028 to purchase the homes that we live in. I am appalled that they would put up here, that they put up a sign and sent notices a year ago in October that there was a public hearing. There was no sign. We were not notified. I have concerns, but now it's too late to voice my concerns. I'm concerned about the excavation of the property. We have my backyard. I have a 4-foot cement wall. So I'm going to get every pack rat, every scorpion, every rattlesnake coming into my yard, plus my neighbor's yards. The dust, I'm on oxygen. It's going to be dusty. But there again, if we were notified of the public hearing, supposedly the sign and the notices that were sent, that is not correct. That is not the truth. So I'm basing my opinion on what is going to go up here and how they're going to run it. If they started off by falsehoods, what else is a falsehood? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Rudy, do we have proof of notice in the newspaper?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Begeman, with all due respect to the speakers, Apache Junction Townhomes is still all under one ownership. A group from Utah called Pathfinder 3. Apache Junction Villas is a low-income housing tax credit project. Under the arrangement, the units would have to be rented for 15 years. After 15 years, the units can be sold. It is a platted subdivision. Basically, it's a subdivision of mostly duplexes. And the arrangement was that, you know, people would rent these units. After 15 years, the units could be sold, and the sale of the units, the existing residents would be given first right of refusal, and all of the money that they had paid in rent would be credited towards the purchase price. So that is the arrangement under which folks at Apache Junction Townhomes live. Apache Junction Townhomes has the same zoning as this property here. The reason that individual people did not get notices is because the notice went to the current property owner, which is Pathfinder 3. The posting notice normally goes up 2 weeks before the first public hearing. And the second lady who spoke, the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a recommendation, but the City Council makes the final decision in mid-November? Mid-November.
Thank you, Rudy. Ma'am, please state your name and address.
My name is Rita Toledo, and I'm at 1184 North Coconino, also in the Apache Junction Townhomes. You mentioned trees, and it kind of made me giggle because my dad's a gardener, and these eucalyptus trees, yeah, they grow, and they grow fast. They also damage pipes. They need to realize what kind of trees they're going to pick, because some of our piping is also underground, which means whatever they decide to pick, it's going to damage some of our housing and our pipes in our property. And yeah, we may be renting, but soon we'll be owning. Also, my main concern is the emergency vehicles. Even where we live, I live in the cul-de-sac area. And unfortunately, there's been some incidences that we needed EMTs coming in and the fire department, and they almost couldn't fit. And our area is a lot wider than this space that they're trying to build something. So, in my opinion, I don't think any of those emergency vehicles are going to be able to go in and out. And yeah, it's going to be like a 5-8 point turn for them to go in and out. It is way too narrow for any type of apartment. And Ms. Goldie was right, maybe a 1-story, something small, but for 2 apartments, no. There's no way. There's my backyard, the only thing dividing up me and that property is a thin wall. And privacy and everything that they came up with, it's very, it's like, I don't even want to own it anymore, and that's true. The property value is going to go down once these go up, because it's not going to be private for us anymore. Just keep it at a one-story if possible, and smaller units, because we all know, I mean, growing up, we all lived in apartments, and there weren't two people living in apartments. You've got 3 or 4 roommates to, pay the rent and everything like that, and you're going to have those many cars. There's no room for parking, none at all. And that's just my say on the matter. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sir? come on.
Thanks for the chance to speak here. My name's Frank Stock. I'm at 1189 North Apache Drive, which is just directly west. My backyard is on the west side of the property here. My concern is primarily that in Apache Junction townhomes, the majority of the residents are senior citizens or very young families with small children. I feel that the nature of this particular development will probably bring in other demographic that may be more disruptive, if you will, of small children trying to take naps, going to bed at reasonable hours. I feel that the proposal is out of harmony. It really sets inside Apache Junction townhomes for all intents and purposes, and is out of harmony with that particular community, and that would be my primary objection. So I appreciate your time in listening to that.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else like to speak at this time? Again, anybody else? All right, seeing none, I'm now going to close the public hearing section. Commissioner? Anybody like to say anything? Discuss?
I have a question for Rudy.
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason why these 3 lots were not developed when the townhomes were?
Mr. Mang, previous owner, refused to sell for a very long time. And I believe in recent years, he has fallen ill and finally decided to sell his property.
Okay.
Yeah, the AJ Townhome developers did approach him at least a couple of times, and he didn't want to sell at the time.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a question for
Commissioner.
Rudy, too.
Commissioner Barr?
Rudy,
Yes, ma'am.
I remember when when the Apache Junction development went in, how tall are those homes?
At AJ Townhomes? Typical single story is probably 27, 28 feet to the peak of the roof, or less. 18 to the peak of the roof, 18, 20 maybe.
Okay, and I remember seeing in here somewhere where, though current zoning allows for 40-foot building height, they've limited the building height to approximately 25 feet, correct?
Kelsey, is that correct? Yes, ma'am.
So that's a couple of feet taller than the homes that are there. It's not towering over them. Okay, thank you.
I think the concern for most of the residents is the windows looking
Sure.
into their backyard.
Yeah,
It's not the
understood.
overall height.
Yeah, well,
I believe so. We can talk to Kelsey, right, on this, or do we have to reopen? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Kelsey, could I ask you a questions quick? So I'm noticing in the packet, there are no conceptuals for the back of the apartments showing any kind of a rendering whatsoever.
You have a rendering if you'd like to see it.
Is it available to
Yeah.
place online?
they're right here. north, south, east and
missed
west.
that then.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're all right
So they have
there.
balconies on the,
The balconies are on the,
Yes, there are balconies on the second story.
they should be on the front,
Yeah,
not the
that's-
back.
Yeah, what you were showing was the front, isn't it?
Yes,
That's where the
so
garage
this is the front with the
that's the
garage.
front, this is the side.
And this is the back right here.
That right there. Hold
These
that.
are the backs of the units.
Yeah.
Yep.
And is there provision for a wall between the properties?
There is a wall between each unit, so each unit has private,
No, between this development and the one behind it?
there is an existing wall there that they were going to utilize.
And that is, it sounds like that's like 4 feet?
I don't know, do you know, Rudy, I think it's
It
a 6-foot
typically would
wall.
be a 6-foot wall, but it can fluctuate depending on, you know, lay of the land.
Okay. Yeah, because we've had other situations like with the 6-foot wall where you took a look at the angles and it was not going to be readily visible.
Are they gonna be required to raise it to 6 foot if it isn't 6 foot?
We don't currently have it within, and it's owned by the other developers,
Is it?
so.
Okay. So they won't really be able to anyway then? Anyone else? I see Robin steaming then. Like,
Pardon?
you got anything else?
No, I'm just looking, I'm concentrating here.
So what, you know, why aren't they trying to combine the 3 lots into 1 lot? And,
For finances.
My understanding, it has to do with the way that they are financing their property.
okay, and then did they consider doing single level at all?
I do not believe that was part of the plan to make it pencil out for their financing purposes. They thought the 2-story in order to get the number of units they needed.
Return on the list.
Again?
If you'd like the applicant to come up.
No, because then we'd reopen.
Yeah, we'd have to reopen those.
Yeah.
How big are these apartments?
Square foot.
I looked, but
I couldn't find it either. I know it's, I didn't see a square footage on it. We know how long the driveway is.
The driveway is,
Yeah, we got that
25.
part, but we don't have the,
Well, you have 35 here, and
I believe it's about 6,900 for all 4. I don't have the numbers for each individual unit.
stop. You're going too fast.
So it's 1,600 and 1,800.
okay.
It's bigger than my house.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, those are good.
larger than some houses.
It's
Yeah.
bigger than mine,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
And we said these were all 2 to 3 bedroom, right?
3 to 4 bedroom.
Oh, 3 to 4, I'm sorry.
My turn?
Sure.
I've got a bit of a problem with this. It's just, you know, these new proposed buildings are being put down in the middle of an existing development, and they, for me, architecturally, they're very different from the existing structures that are there. And, you know, that's a problem. However, on the other side of the coin, I don't think I'm in a position to tell somebody what they can do with their own property, as long as they are following the zoning ordinances of the city, and I believe they are. I think really what we're being asked to look at is the RSGR
Or being asked.
lot, to change that, change one of those 3 lots from RSGR to RM2 with a planned development thing in it. I think it's unfortunate that they've chosen this type of structure. And I guess I'm on the fence. I don't know what to say anymore beyond that, so
I have another
the floor is yours.
Commissioner Cross, you wish to say something?
Yeah, looking at this layout right here, did they give it in consideration as to turning each of the units running north and south? Have all 4 units running north and south? Yes, it would, and maybe ask for a variance for the back setback, and then have no windows on the north side of each of the buildings?
Garages don't work.
I don't believe they considered that. I believe that they thought that this was the best layout for the property. And I think it would also depend with second story, with having egress required by building code. I mean, they could, depending on how they configured it, it may or may not be feasible with how many bedrooms they're trying to have in each unit.
Mr. Chair, I have a curiosity. How wide is Roundup on this?
So it is, so in total, once they dedicate right-of-way, this will be 50 feet. So right now, it is 33 feet of dedicated with a 33-foot easement. They're asking for a bit of a reduction, but they will have the full 50.
50 feet is the normal
Right.
public works standard for a residential collector.
And then that cul-de-sac dips down. I'm trying to figure out how wide that is. I have no concept at all, obviously.
Well, it gives, can you zoom in on that?
Can we zoom
It
in?
gives you
50.
a radius right there.
There you go. Okay,
41, so it'd
thank
be
you.
82 feet.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was. Thank you for figuring that out, sir. Appreciate it.
Zoom really helps.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
I couldn't get mine to zoom at home.
Yeah, I had the same.
Anybody else have any questions for Kelsey? No, I think, thank you. Oh.
I tend to be with Commissioner Gage, where I feel a lot more comfortable if these were townhomes instead of apartments, but,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how well this, in my personal opinion, I don't know how well this fits with everything around it. Plus the fact they're apartments, but again, the ones around it are not technically owned.
They will be.
They can be. They could be. On that, Rudy, if, let's say they sell them, then anybody could come in and purchase if the owner refuses, and that'll be on an individual unit basis, the way their stuff is, for the ones around them.
They could sell each lot, and each lot would have a fourplex.
No, I'm talking about the units like behind them where these residents live.
Oh, yeah. In 5 years, more or less, those units, those people will be able to purchase those homes.
But if they refuse it, then they can be sold to any
Correct.
individual.
Yes.
And then all the units will eventually be individually owned,
Yes, sir.
or could be.
Yeah.
Could be, yes.
Yeah. I remember, Mr. Chair, I remember when that development came in to the council, and there was a great deal of commotion because it was a low-income situation. A lot of people felt like there would be different types of people in there, which is what I'm hearing now about these apartments. I'm hearing almost exactly the same comments that I heard then.
I mean, to me, the biggest thing is the two-story looking in.
Yeah, the two-story seems a little much.
Yeah, I mean, that's my biggest concern. Conceptually, if it wasn't two-story, and it's gonna take 2 to 3 years to have any kind of privacy. And then if trees die, get damaged, then they're gonna have another 2 to 3 years on replacement trees. And any ongoing time, that's where that kind of bothers me with this project. Plus the fact there's balconies hanging out back there.
Yeah, the balconies, I think, are
Right,
just in the wrong spot,
yeah. I mean,
definitely.
that's what I'm finding, in my opinion, wrong, and I'm having trouble with this.
Okay.
But, I mean, do we want to make a motion and vote on it?
I don't. If you're asking me.
Well, we could make a motion to deny it.
We have to go through what, findings of fact first?
Finding
Yeah.
fact first.
Oh, we do, the finding of.
Okay.
Yes, I'm
I'll-
sorry.
I'll
I
get
got
that.
ahead of myself.
Yeah, okay, findings of fact. There's 3 of them that must be done in a situation like this. That a better design cannot be achieved by applying the strict provisions of the underlying zoning district.
I disagree with
I'm
that.
disagree as well.
I disagree with that.
Yeah. Technically, the proposal fits fits the zoning codes, but we're saying that we think that there could be a better proposal for this area.
I think it could be a better design.
Better
A
design.
better design
Yeah.
can be achieved by applying the
Okay,
strict
now, do we
provisions.
have
So I
to vote on
disagree
each
with
one of
that.
these, or
No.
is that just
No.
kind of a general consensus?
That's our consensus.
Okay. 2, that strict adherence to the provisions of the zoning ordinance is not required in order to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the proposed development.
I agree with
I
that.
agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
3, that strict adherence to the ordinance is not required to ensure the property values of adjacent properties will not be reduced.
I agree with that, too.
I do.
I
See
think
that
that
that's a problem at all.
having this property developed probably helps surrounding
It does.
properties more than hurts them.
Definitely.
Okay,
So question, Mr. Chair. My understanding is that we need to agree with all 3 criteria. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
I think it's a combination, yeah.
So,
So if we disagree with a third of the criteria, what does that mean?
Well, you can make a motion with any findings you want.
Okay.
So, whatever findings you come up with, you can then make a motion, and then the council gets to sort it out.
Goody.
okay, so, well, let's try this. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the denial of case P-21-99-PZ, a plan development major amendment request by Travis Hepp, owner-developer, represented by Wilson Ejim of Ejim Design Group, applicant for 12 for-rent apartment units generally located near the northwest corner of Idaho and Roundup Street now. Do we have to go through the conditions as well?
no, we
No.
can name them, but we should
No.
still
Do we have to
include that
give a
change.
reason?
But we should still include the change to number 4.
Well, I think we do need to
5.
include
Or
the
5, I'm
reason
sorry.
for.
You're recommending denial, you don't have to,
Okay,
you're recommending denial of all the conditions.
Do we,
but
do
then
we
we
have
should
to
But
say
shouldn't it
why we are
reflect those-
recommending denial.
You should, yes, state your reason for denial. yeah.
Okay.
But shouldn't number 5 be reflected update to the change that they want to put in place?
no, because we're
Only if you're
denying
recommending
it.
approval of it.
Okay, but what if it goes, it's still going to city
They'll do
council?
Still gonna go to city council.
Okay, and they'll put that in for that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That would be part of city council. So the reason for the recommendation to deny is that we do not feel that this is the best use of the property, with this being 3 4-unit apartments,
Two-story.
2-story apartments that is not consistent with the neighborhood involved, and the management structure for long-term appears to be questionable at best.
Well, and I'd say that a better design could be achieved.
A better design can be achieved.
We feel that a better
Oh,
design.
yes.
Yes.
Second.
Rudy, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
No.
The yes is deny, or did, so you're in support of it?
Correct. Right.
I said no.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Chairman Hanshi.
Yes.
The vote is 5-1, recommending denial. This case will be forwarded to City Council with your recommendation of denial and for the reasons stated, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next one, we have 22-640, presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration on conditional use permit, resolution number P-22-90-CUP, a request by Don Asante Edifice Architecture on behalf of the property owner, Superstition Flats LLC, approval of a 20-unit, 2-story leased residential community tentatively known as Superstition Junction on 1.6 acres zoned commercial, general commercial B1.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission. It's good to stand before you again. So Superstition Junction is a proposed, as was just noted, a proposed 20-unit leased residential community. It's located just right about halfway Delaware and Ironwood, right on Superstition Boulevard, on the southwest corner of Superstition and Palo Verde Drive. So this being a B1 general commercial zoning district, this kind of leased community can be permitted under a conditional use permit. So this is something that would not go forward to the City Council tonight. It is just for consideration under the Planning and Zoning Commission. As a matter of zoning and analysis, so to the southwest of the property, there is a church property that is zoned to RM1 and public institutional, kind of a weird mixed zoning. They are a neighbor that they have had discussions with the property owner. They held the neighborhood meeting there, generally in support. To the west is another general commercial property that's kind of in an odd situation with a couple residential units on it already of its own, as well as a commercial office. They have not expressed any issue. The property owner of that property is actually the property owner that sold it to the current property owner to develop. And then to the south, and as well as to the east, there are RS10 medium-density residential properties. The applicant has indicated that they've been speaking with the neighbors surrounding them, ranging back all the way to about January of this year. We have not noted any difficulties or any tensions between them. In fact, this property historically has had either trash buildup or vagrancies on it, and so the neighbors have generally expressed support of the development of this property. It is kind of an odd commercial property in as much as it's a little bit narrower than normal, so it has sat and remained vacant and undeveloped as long as it's been around. And so the developer has come in with this proposal to develop it for these these 4 buildings with 5 units each, totaling 20 units. They are all alley-loaded units. Regarding the positioning of the entrances on Superstition Boulevard and Palo Verde Drive, there were several different orientations and configurations that had been worked on. We've been working with the applicant since earlier this year. It finally came down with Public Works that in order to have these kinds of entrances, they needed to align. There could only be one entrance on Superstition Boulevard and one entrance on Palo Verde Drive. In order to meet both Public Works and Fire District requirements, they needed to align with the existing main drive and and everything was oriented so that ultimately this was considered the best configuration, one that met all of the codes, met all of the requirements. The applicant has amenities on site with tot lots and some ramadas with the retention basins, as well as some open space and green area. Now, as noted, this is a landscape plan, just detailing that, what they have. They are providing adequate landscaping along both Superstition Boulevard and Palo Verde Drive. Again, it is noted that these are 2-story units. We have worked with the applicant and their architect extensively in order to make sure that this that the development of this property is in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood, that it would be high quality as well as sustainable development. So in terms of the building type, they've sought to ensure that this would be more appealing to families, have a sort of construction that would lower utility bills in general, and that is the express purpose for which they have proposed this, or how they have framed this project, seeking mostly to appeal to younger families with the home types as well as the general development of the property. So the sign was posted, all affidavits received, and notices were sent out to property owners 300 feet around the subject site. It was advertised in the newspaper. A neighborhood meeting was held immediately adjacent to their property on September 7th in the First Assembly of God Church just next door. A couple of the neighbors who are members of that church attended. They primarily just had questions about the timeline of construction, but they expressed support, and the applicant's interactions with the neighbors, to our understanding, have all been amenable. I have, nor has any other staff, as far as I'm aware, received any neighborhood contact regarding this development specifically. With this all in mind, staff recommends the approval of P2290 CUP, this case, subject to the conditions of approval found in the staff report, primarily all very standard conditions. With that, we make this recommendation in consideration of the parcel, of its history, as well as the general plan goals and support. Mostly looking at a variety of housing types, quality housing stock, sustainable practices within the building that have been proposed, as well as the general encouragement of infill development, which we believe that this is a rightful use of this property, something that makes sense and something that would be supportive of the neighborhood and of the community. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. The applicant and their architect are here today.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Barker?
I just have one curiosity. The entrance exit on Palo Verde, that home that's right across the street, are they going to be subject to headlights? I can't tell how that home is oriented exactly. Or is that entrance kind of in between the home and the accessory building?
So the entrance is approximately between them. I can't guarantee that there won't be any deviant lights as they turn or anything like that. However, it is primarily located in the middle.
In that space there, okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Cantwell?
What is the size of this property? How deep is it?
So, let's see.
Yeah.
The depth of the property.
Unfortunately, my
No worries.
395 stretchers didn't work.
So it is about 148 feet deep from the northern edge to the south edge. If you're asking about from east to
No,
west.
That was the 148 north-south is.
Okay, yes.
Because, yeah, that's a big limitation on being able to develop any
Right.
kind of commercial in that area. You know, I hate changing commercial to residential, but I also realize that, you know, this is an area that has not had a lot of commercial commercial development.
Right. And that is something that staff has worked with the applicant regarding. There were several different configurations of the site. At one point, each of the building was north-south oriented in order to try and place them in different parts. It was determined that they could only fit things in a certain way, as well as meet the fire district and public works requirements if things were oriented in the current position. So We have had a lot of different consideration in terms of how it would affect commercial. There's the different ideas regarding the landscaping and parking lots and the different aspects, and that is kind of how we have come in working with this applicant to this conclusion and recommendation.
I have another.
Commissioner Croft.
You have listed on here under the findings of fact that to prevent vehicle on number 1, it states that there's a 6-lane arterial of West Superstition Boulevard. I didn't think we had 6 lanes there, do we?
Mm-mm. 5 count the turn.
5 with the center lane?
With the turn lane.
Yeah.
I see, that was an applicant response.
Okay.
It is, I think, more approximately 5, including the turn lane, but
Is there going to be a deceleration lane there? It didn't look like it.
there had not been one proposed on the plans.
Okay.
And that was as determined by, regarding the requirements of the city public works. We have not had any indication for that.
Okay.
Commissioner Gage, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm echoing Commissioner Cantwell's concern about, here we go, rezoning commercial property to residential again. And a question, is there, in your world of planning engineers, is there some kind of rule of thumb about the mix of commercial with residential? My concern being, are we going to run out of commercial space at some point in the time if we keep doing this? Do you guys have a rule of thumb where at some point you'll stop recommending that we
Rezone.
convert commercial into residential?
When you ask mixed, if you're regarding a ratio specifically,
Yeah, something like that.
we have been looking at this and studying it for quite a while. It finally came to the determination after we actually performed an analysis of square footage throughout the entire city, acreage and square footage of commercial properties. It was ultimately determined that some of it does come down to a case-by-case basis of the usage of each property. There are certain properties that are, and by pure number too, we were calculating B1 versus all the different zoning districts. And while we don't have a concrete ratio, we did determine the percentages, and the city's current percentage is, it's been a while since I prepared the report, but it was about 12%, which is somewhat in line for the B1. There's also a different mix for industrial uses and so forth. And that was somewhat in line with the neighboring. It actually ranged from about 12 to 18%, depending on the different calculations, but that was somewhat in line with different cities of similar size and similar scope, as well as other cities in the valley. So we've determined that right now, we are still somewhat in a good, safe spot. However, it was ultimately determined that the case-by-case basis of determining is this property viable commercially is a little bit more reliable. Well, unfortunately, that's not a good rule of thumb that we can judge everything by because it's case-by-case. But figuring out the site makeup, how it would work, what kind of commercial that draws, have all been at the forefront of these discussions. And we've met with different commercial analysts who have provided different reasonings for different things, as well as the applicability of commercial on different sites. So it is something that we have in our consideration, but I don't necessarily have an exact number to give you.
Okay. And I'm pleased to hear that you guys are thinking about it and that it is an area of concern. So I'm happy with that. Thanks.
Chairman. Kind of following up on that, I mean, this property could make, a small strip mall as far as if it was a commercial development. And when you take a look at Superstition in that general area, there's just not a tremendous amount of demand for a strip mall type property. I come from a background with a lot of light manufacturing in areas such as this, and quite frankly, I'd like to have the revenue from a manufacturing facility, but in terms of the neighborhood, I'd rather have apartments than manufacturing. So,
Commissioner Barker?
The front of these, of buildings A and C, are they facing Superstition? Is that the front?
The front being like where, not the
front
garage,
door.
but the front door and everything,
Yeah.
they are facing Superstition.
So how high is the wall on Superstition?
So the wall on Superstition is 6 feet.
Wow, what a shame. I mean, you open your door to a wall.
And that is something we've discussed with the applicant. They can speak more specifically to the concept they were going for. They prioritized the privacy of the residents. Staff did recommend opening it up in different ways. However, that is how they have expressed it to us.
That's disappointing.
Do we have a architectural view of the front facing Superstition? I mean.
You don't mean this, you mean like a rendering?
Yeah.
I do have it within a,
But not with the, what's the setback from the front? Nick,
the setback from the front,
10 feet?
it is about 15 feet actually. Almost 16.
No. But that doesn't count the common, does that count the common area?
There's no common area in the front, is there?
That's specifically from the property line. If we were to gauge it from the street front, so from the edge of the sidewalk, it is actually about 33 feet, or, sorry, about 30 feet.
And then you got the wall.
So from the wall, it's about 16 feet.
I just think that we are building tunnels
Yeah.
down all of these major roads. It's just tunnels. I mean, it looks awful. It's certainly not inviting to anybody to drive down tunnels.
So this rendering lacks the landscaping that would be there. However, this is generally the rendering of the building and the wall itself.
Yeah, I seen this one, I was just wondering if we had
Yeah.
something like a
Yeah.
street view with the.
I don't have any more than that of how it might look in terms of positioning or lines.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Is the builder, I guess we can go to the builder at this point?
Sure.
Yeah.
Good to see you all again. Dane, Astle, 922 North Gilbert Road, Mesa. Happy to be here. Not the builder, but the architect representing the owner. Happy to answer any questions. I guess the one quick one is the fencing. We did change the way the fencing broke up when we did not have a private residence behind it. So it opens up between all those buildings for almost the length of a whole building and then ultimately closes back.
Clarify it. I don't quite get what you're
So
saying.
in the area that you see, concrete fence right there in front of the amenities area? Do we block or view fence? I thought it was view fence. Yeah, just making sure I was correct in my thinking. So we ultimately decided with staff, as we did discuss both options, to create view fencing, and all, you can see on the, I'm just gonna call it the top of the plan there on your
Okay.
sheet, everything between those two buildings is opened to the landscaping, so you can view all of the trees in that area. We do understand that it could create corridors as you take a stretch. We had at one point a solid one. We discussed with staff that would be a good opportunity to open that up and to show off some of the amenity space and the greenery within. The remainder, we really wanted to keep private for future tenants.
Commissioner
Just
Crowe?
old-fashioned, that's all.
Well,
I live in a house.
I also think of that wall as being somewhat of a noise barrier for the
Well, yeah.
first floor of
Yes.
those residents.
Yeah.
They open up their door, they've got what appears to be really nice landscaping,
Yep.
and behind the landscaping is the wall. Us driving down through there, yeah, we don't
Are
get,
in a tunnel.
we don't get to appreciate the landscaping,
No,
but what's there now? Nothing, so.
well.
Well, there is
yes,
landscaping along the
there
road
is
outside the wall.
And that is to be maintained, and that will actually be over the fence as well, so it'll kind of give both sides a little bit
Yeah.
of barrier there. And you're right, the sound was a major consideration for that privacy. It's a busy street. We wanted just a little bit of divide between kids and those who are trying to live their lives back there, having a barbecue or whatever it might be.
You have a dog park?
You know, we talked about this last
Yes,
time.
we did.
How could I not have that
That's
written up
bringing
there?
it
How could I not have that written up there? I'm getting more used to you
Yes,
here.
you are.
If Robin had her way, there'd
Walls
be a
and
dog
dogs.
park.
I can't
on
believe
every
it's
corner.
not written. How could we have done that?
Robin, how many dog parks do you need to use?
I think that every neighborhood that has more than 10 or 15 people, residents need some kind of small lot for their dogs. Because a lot of people can't walk that well or get in the car and go. And they have animals. They need some place to be able to let them relieve themselves.
Yep.
I mean, it's important.
Hope you're talking about the animals relieving themselves and not the owners.
I wasn't gonna go that way.
Another question?
Well, at least you have it in your head
Oh,
all
yeah,
the time.
you've got me there. I think I'll be putting them in every jurisdiction I work in.
Commissioner, oh, do you have something?
No.
Oh, good. Commissioner Cross?
Unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever way the fence you choose to be on, will each of these units have electrical charging stations for future transportation needs?
Yeah, right
Right.
now, they're not equipped with separate 50-amp services, no, but they do have electricity, could eventually be adapted by whichever owner, but these are not privately owned, so as of right now, that's not set up for that, no. It's a great idea.
So nowhere on the property will be charging stations?
We do not have one right now, no.
Okay.
That's gonna be interesting. to see
Well,
when
aren't
they
these gonna,
Yeah,
I thought this said they're gonna be privately leased or owned.
No, these are leased.
Right.
They're for rent, yeah.
Would you give them the option of maybe putting a 50-amp circuit in the garage for that?
You know, we currently don't have it in our plan to offer that. It's something that we could talk about. Hopefully, we could work it out, but right now, we don't have any plans for charging stations. The efficiency that we talked about earlier is more just in the construction. It's a foam block construction. It's a little different than your standard.
Nice.
And it has a lot of thickness to it, a lot of additional expense.
Right.
Just to create a very efficient unit that I anticipate will have a very low electric bill, yeah, which might eventually open up the additional residual electricity in the panel for some type of a service.
All right, Commissioner Cantwell.
What is the fence on the south side? Is that going to be an open fence? Or is
So
that-
currently, it's actually chain link, and we're looking forward to creating a barrier there, and have worked with the neighbors to the south in figuring out how to get that installed together. So that will be new, and it's planned, and we're working together with the neighbors to make it happen.
Yeah, it'd be nice to open.
Everybody's actually looking forward to that. That'll be a great, it'll also cut the pathway. Right now, everyone seems to enjoy crossing that area and jumping fences and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a good crossing point.
Yeah, it seems to be. Yeah, they've noticed. Many enjoy it.
Anyone else, any questions? I think we're good, thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Seeing this is a public hearing, I'm gonna now open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak at this time? Again, anybody from the public? Seeing none, gonna close the public. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Sure.
Although I agree in a lot of sense about not getting rid of any of our commercial zoning. In this situation, the plan looks good, the concept is good, and this may be one of those exceptions to, doing away with a little bit of non-use commercial and turning it into something more useful. So that's all I have.
Anyone else? I agree. Commissioner Gage?
Yeah, and I agree with Commissioner Cross. I think this is a good application to change commercial into residential. my curiosity was more on that we are looking at the mix and are, you know, at least cognizant of that. We're going through a lot of commercial and turning it into residential. We're being asked to approve a conditional use permit. Is there a time limit on the construction for this? That's been in the past we've had.
Typically, a conditional use permit is good for a year. If they don't submit plans, get something going within a year, it can come back to the commission for lack of action.
Okay, thanks.
And that's standard.
I would like to say, I mean, this has been vacant forever. I don't think this really does lend itself to much commercial that we need, or it would have probably been filled in long ago.
Good point.
And I think this would be a lot better use than vacant land sitting there. So that's my 2 cents on this.
Agreed.
Anybody else?
Well, we've always had a problem with commercial properties along Superstition. Somebody will come in and put a business, start it up, and then it'll end up folding. We have a few gas stations and a liquor store that seem to be doing okay. There's a carpet and tile place, seems to be holding on. But other than that, everybody else has seemed to
Tire store.
gone. You know, for whatever the reason, whether it's lack of support in the neighborhood or whatever. So I too don't like changing commercial properties into some places living, but I don't see a better use for this property at this moment.
Anyone else?
Findings of fact.
At this point, we gotta do finding of fact then. Anybody volunteering?
I'll do it.
All right.
All right, number 1. The adequacy of roadways, off-street parking, public facilities and services to accommodate this proposed use.
I think it's good.
I think it, agree.
Works for me. Number 2, negative impacts arising from emission, odor, dust, gas, noise, lighting, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare.
Don't see any.
Not applicable.
Number 3, contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or negative impact on neighborhood property values. Quite the opposite.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. 4, compatibility with surrounding uses and structures.
I would say yes, we got quite a few of these going
Definitely
along
see
there.
that.
Yeah, we're gonna wind up with Superstition being apartment row.
Yeah, yeah.
Townhouse row.
5, conformance with the general plan and city policies.
It does. It's in the downtown, isn't it?
Screening and buffering of uses.
I think they did the best
Yes.
they could do.
A whole lot.
That's very well screened.
Yeah, it's well screened. And 7, unique nature of the property use and/or development physical characteristics. Yeah,
I would, yep.
yeah, I like it. Yes, yes. Mr. Chair, may I make a motion?
You may.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the approval of the conditional use permit case P-22-90-CUP, a request by Dane Astle, I got it, of Edifice Architecture on behalf of Superstition Flats LLC for a 20-unit, 2-story leased residential community tentatively named Superstition Junction, located at the southwest corner of Superstition Boulevard and Palo Verde Drive, subject to the conditions in the October 11th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission report.
Question, this is not being recommended to the city council, is it? It's being done here.
Yes, sir.
Right.
You decide the CUP.
Okay, so is
that
this
was right
worded
from-
correctly? Because it says.
It says recommended to the
Recommended to
city
the
council.
Apache Junction.
No, this is approval. This is approval. Sorry about that.
Okay, so this, the
So I
motion should be
scratched-
changed that approval of the conditional use
Yes, sir.
permit.
Yes. Okay, so we scratch recommend to the, no, we scratch to the Apache Junction City Council
Yeah.
the approval of, and leave recommend the approval of conditional use permit.
Yes.
I second with the amendment.
Rudy, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Cross,
Yep.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes,
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Chairman Hanshi.
Yes.
The CUP request is approved, Mr. Chairman. Within 20 days, any aggrieved individual can appeal this to the city council for due cause and half the filing fee, et cetera, et cetera. Otherwise, your decision stands.
And we don't need to go over the resolution then.
No, sir. I think the motion was with all conditions.
Good.
Can we take a 5-minute recess? I need to use the restroom. I ain't used to these long ones again. So I'm gonna adjourn for 5 minutes. Planning and zoning meeting. The next one. Sorry, I got flip pages here. And we're going to combine the next two into one. So I have 22-641 and 22642. First one, presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration on case P-22-88-PZ, a request by Chris Hundelt of Keystone Homes for approval of planned development rezoning of 14.1 acres currently zoned RS-GR and RM-2 to RM-2/PD to approval and facilitate the development of a 158-unit leased residential community tentatively known as Havenly Scenic. And the second one, presentation, discussion of public hearing and consideration on case P-22-89-PZ, a request by Chris Hundelt of Keystone Homes to amend Ordinance 1518 to modify the conditions of approval requiring the improvement and dedication of Colt Road. Nick?
Thank you, Chair Hanchey. I'm appreciative of the break. Right back up here.
Yeah.
So as a bit of context, the area highlighted in blue was part of a rezoning case just last year. It was P2173PZ, known as the Havenly Superstition Project, which was approved by the City Council last December. Since that time, the same developer, Keystone Homes, and the applicant has entered the process to acquire the properties that are highlighted in red, which is the subject rezoning of P2288PZ, which is the proposal for a community tentatively known as the Havenly Scenic. Just to distinguish again between the two different cases and how they're related, P2288PZ is the proposed plan development rezoning of the red properties, consisting of 8 parcels, about 14.1 acres. Currently, as shown in the zoning map, it is a mix of RSGR, the general rural residential acre and a quarter lots, as well as an existing RM2 high-density residential property that is about 5 acres. The proposal is for another, it's a similar development consisting of 158 leased residential units. While the site plan and the development plan affected the site plan of phase 1, or sorry, let me correct that, it's 2 separate and distinct projects, so it's not a phase 1, phase 2, but the Havenly Superstition is the previously approved project that originally had conditions of approval related to the site improvement and the dedication and improvement of Colt Road as that west 25 feet of those properties highlighted in blue. So as that has been incorporated into the development plan of the Havenly Scenic, P2288PZ, it then has required some amending of the original rezoning case and the development plans, because they will no longer, assuming that P2288PZ is approved, then there is no reason to dedicate and improve Colt Road because that has been incorporated into the development plan of the Havenly Scenic, the second project. So P2289PZ is an amendment contingent on the approval of the Havenly Scenic that would then remove the obligations of the developer related to Colt Road from P2173PZ, the Havenly Superstition, which is codified in Ordinance number 1518. As a matter of rezoning, I expressed what it currently is. The amendment will not change the zoning character of the existing RM2 PD of the Havenly Superstition. It is a similar zoning makeup. To the south, there is the manufactured home park, Superstition Village Manufactured Homes. There are, in the surrounding area, other RSGR, general rural residential properties. As specifically to the west, there is a county retention basin that is also proposed with some park plans that are in the works. So it is a large vacant parcel to be developed under the county lease with the BLM land, zone B3 and RSGR. There is to the north the state land trust land that is currently vacant, as well as some B1 properties, general commercial right next to the roundabout. In order to guarantee access, the applicant is being required to dedicate the 33-foot federal patent easement along Winchester Road, because right now, the roundabout is part of the Arizona Department of Transportation right-of-way. They've indicated that there are limitations into breaking a hole through the roundabout, so that is currently the makeup of the roadway and the properties and how they're related. While again, to the east of this are other RSGR properties, as well as the previously noted Havenly Superstition. We've noted previously the general plan designation of this area. It is within the downtown mixed-use core, as we're trying to develop a downtown both with commercial uses, mixed-use residential, and high-density residential in order to support these businesses. This falls within that zone, and staff has recommendations of approval based on the general plan goals and the designations given within the general plan. Here is a site plan map for the Havenly Scenic. I have the two different images. The first one is more of a landscape plan, just kind of showing a general image of what things would look like. The second image on the right is a specific plan that designates where two-story buildings will be on the property. It was something that was noted previously with the Havenly Superstition that was considered last year. There were originally two-story homes that had been proposed that had then been removed in order to accommodate the desires of surrounding neighbors. They've been reintroduced in this one, partly at the admonition of staff, as we have tried to implement more of a transition vertically into the downtown. So as part of the request, trying to get higher densities or the appearance of higher density, the applicant has introduced these two-story homes noted in the darker orange, and that is what this site plan notes. This next slide is just a little bit closer view, broken into a bottom half on the left and a top half on the right. There are two entrances to the property. One is on Scenic to the south, and the other is north, right where the Colt Road alignment was. That entrance that opens up onto Superstition Boulevard. The site makeup is primarily single-family style leased units. So by that I mean they're primarily individual homes that are then leased out. There are some duplexes on the property, as well as some carriage units. There are 6 carriage unit buildings, which is to have the garage on the bottom and then a different leased unit on top. But the site makeup is primarily these individual homes that are built in cluster styles, primarily around these little park patches. It's a similar concept to what we had seen before. This is a side-by-side site plan of, there's the previous project, the Havenly Superstition, the currently proposed project, the Havenly Scenic, and as a matter of just information, there's this red border, or this red box that shows the aspect that is considered as part of the amendment, P2289PZ. So as a difference on the site plan as part of where Colt Road currently is and what would have been dedicated to Colt Road, this section right here is what has required the amendment, because it was otherwise going to be developed as part of the street. Now it is no longer proposed as such. And so just to, again, to release the developer of the legal obligations found within the zoning ordinance 1518, that is what the amendment case is for. This is only an excerpt of the elevations that they have. The applicant has proposed several, or quite a variety of different elevation types, both with about Spanish architecture as well as modern prairie type architecture. So there are different home styles as well as floor plan designs. And so this is just an excerpt of some of what they have proposed without giving an extensive overview of all the architecture. It's a good insight into what they have proposed regarding the design. Primarily, about 30% of the buildings are two-story, which is shown here. Again, there's a little bit of a mix of both architecture and floor plan style. On the right are the carriage units that are proposed. Now, to give a brief insight into the height, the Spanish style architecture is about 26 feet, while the modern prairie is about almost 25 feet, 24 and 7 inches or so. The applicant has also proposed some amenity features throughout the site. As noted, there are little pocket parks throughout the entire community. However, there is a central park features. There is a clubhouse with both the leasing office and the pool and other amenity features. So in this case, the applicant has sought to involve a greater scope of residents in their public notification. There is the traditional and the required 300 feet property buffer in the boundary for which they must provide mailing notifications. In this case, they provided a 600-foot buffer. As it was noted previously, that more and more residents in the area wanted to be notified. And so they have made that effort on their own in order to provide that mailing and to have those outreach efforts. A joint neighborhood meeting for both cases was held at the Apache Junction Multi-Generational Center on August 8th, just a couple months ago. We had 2 neighbors attend. There were many questions, or several questions regarding property values, rent rates, parking, the provision of water services, and traffic on Scenic Street. One of the residents spoke in favor of the project, another spoke against it. Those concerns have been noted within the staff report. And staff has received additionally one other phone call which expressed support for the rezoning. It was one of the property owners immediately just adjacent to the southeast across the Royal Palm and Scenic. And they spoken again in approval and asking that staff recommend for it. So again, with this and in consideration of the proposed plans and the general plan, staff analysis and our recommendation is that we find and support the approval of this project. We believe that it supports the general plan goals, advocating for the diversifying of housing stock for the most part, in terms of how we've seen different housing types, how this appeals to a specific market. Specific to the general plan for the downtown, there is a discouragement, a written policy discouraging single-family residential development within the downtown core and encouraging high-density development downtown. There's further infill development within the downtown, as well as providing high-density multifamily housing within the downtown area. And in consideration of these goals, that is why staff has again made this recommendation for the approval of P2288PZ. And with that, if P2288PZ, or the Havenly Scenic project, is to be approved, because of the way it interacts with the previous project, the Havenly Superstition, staff would recommend then the approval of P2289PZ, which is the amendment to the previous ordinance in order to clear up those civil improvements and those obligations found therein. So just as a further matter of clarification, P2289PZ would replace all of the conditions of approval with just what has been provided within the staff report. For the most part, all of the conditions are the same. There are 4 changes to the previously approved ordinance 1518. That's just within condition number 1. It would modify the site plan so as to exclude the Colt Road improvements. Condition number 2 is similar. There was language, and I have the ordinance language if you'd like to see it. It would just modify the landscaping requirements so as to exclude Colt Road. Condition number 3, again, would exclude Colt Road just from what was required regarding putting in sidewalks and putting in curb and gutter along Colt Road that will no longer be there were the Havenly Scenic to be approved. While condition number 5 in and of itself is just the dedication and the requirement to dedicate Colt Road as well as a cutoff corner to city right-of-way, as that would no longer be incorporated or part of the city street. So again, this is a proposed rezoning. We would ask, in terms of the order of things, that P2288PZ, the Havenly Scenic, would be considered prior to P2289PZ, just for the logical consistency of it. And as those recommendations would be forwarded to the City Council one way or the other, there will be a City Council work session on Monday, October 31st, here, 7 o'clock, just for the public to know. That is, at that point, it is just for discussion. There won't be any consideration or public hearing at that time. However, it will be an informative session. While the next public hearing for both the applicant and for the public to speak at would be Tuesday, November 15th, also here, 7 o'clock. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. The applicant has prepared another presentation themselves.
And we're going to open to the public before we go to the applicant as well. That way he can answer any questions if there is any from the public. just so we all know. Anybody got any questions for Nick?
Nick, can you go back to the site plan?
Would you like the,
The one with the 2 stories?
yes.
Okay. For the most part, I don't have any problems with it. That land to the west is intended, is that ever going to be developed, or is that county property?
You mean
that
this
will-
property right here?
That property there, and then the 2 B1s up north?
So while I cannot speak to exactly how these 3 properties, there's 2 commercial properties, sorry, let me go to the zoning map for. So there are these 2 B1 general commercial properties, as well as this RSGR property. Exactly how that would be developed, I cannot speak to. I can, however.
Those are available for development?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
And as part of the requirement to dedicate, we have worked extensively with the Arizona Department of Transportation, who had indicated that the only access provided to them would have to be through Winchester, because they have issues with punching holes through the roundabout and in different spots. So rather than implementing a drive-through here, the applicant will be providing a dedication of 33 feet for Winchester Road. But regarding this parcel, this
Yes.
larger one, so that is it's actually owned by the Bureau of Land Management, as I understand. However, it is under a Pinal County lease for park purposes, as well as, right now primarily, Public Works is working with them, as well as our Parks and Recreational Department to build a retention basin there. So, as I understand, and given the holdings by the government and the different leases, it will not be developed for anything other than this retention basin / park.
Okay. Then go back to the site plan with the 2 stories. Okay, I don't have any problem with the ones on the west all the way up. The only ones that come in question are the ones on the south that will be facing Scenic, and then you have the mobile home park on the other side of Scenic, but you have, Scenic will run through that entire area, correct?
Yes.
So you have the wall plus Scenic plus the wall for the mobile home park before you get to the mobile home park, so there will not be any kind of, site issues with those 2-story buildings along the perimeter.
We do not believe so.
Okay, that was my main concern. And Scenic does Scenic go all the way over to Superstition, or will it end at Winchester?
So as Scenic, it extends a little bit past Winchester. However, we've discussed with Public Works, it will not punch through into Idaho. So
Okay.
let me,
Right.
so as it is right now, so right here is Scenic. Scenic extends a little bit. There's a bit of a small cul-de-sac right here. Trying to find. So it extends to about right here.
Okay.
However, because of this intersection, and it's been expressed to us that this is a bit of a complicated intersection at the Apache Trail in Idaho, as it's given the angle and everything. Public Works has indicated that they would not allow Scenic to punch through right there.
So if you are exiting from the south side of this property, then you would go east on Scenic Oil over to Royal Palm, and then either north to Superstition or south to Old West.
That'd be correct, or down Winchester to Junction. There is the alternative, I believe that would definitely happen, but one other alternative would be to head down Scenic to Junction, which opens up onto Idaho, just as another aspect.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Commissioner Cross?
Do you have the reason why the applicant is not developing that last piece of GR right there to the west?
While I can't speak for how they have contacted property owners or tried to negotiate with them, they might be able to answer that. However, as I understand, I think they may have reached out to it. The city has actually been in discussion with the property owner, as they are a developer of other parts of the city. Different development ideas were put forth for that. However, I cannot answer as to why it hasn't been incorporated into this.
Okay. And then on the south side of the property, the first property. They put the buffer zone in there to the south for future trail development. Is that going to carry through to the eastern boundary of the new development and then continue west along the south side?
It has, yes, and that has been implemented into the site plan. So just, while it's somewhat of a thin paseo, it is indicated within their plans as being a continuance of that. And that was something that we had previously planned to establish in order to create that interconnectivity, especially in the aspect of having that future park and trying to connect residents both on the other side of Royal Palm as well as within these communities to provide that path. So that has been proposed to be continued here and incorporated into their site plan.
Does that include along Scenic?
Yes. So they will be required. This plan right here doesn't really show the required civil improvements that would be made upon Scenic. However, those have been required by Public Works, that they would still have that sidewalk there,
Okay.
as I understand.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Barker?
the entrance exit on Superstition, how far is that from the entrance exit of the neighboring development?
I apologize, I don't have an exact dimension for,
I just, we were concerned about that particular area the first time through on the first development. So I was just wondering if,
Looks like it's 200, 250.
yeah, I was just wondering if that would create a problem having those two right there
Well, there is a deceleration lane there for the one that's already approved.
for the second one.
Right, and I don't believe.
Or
they
the
could put
first one,
in for
whichever
this.
way you want to put it.
Right,
Why
the
does,
prior approved one.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Barker, it's probably right around 300 feet.
So it shouldn't create a
250.
problem.
250? Right around 250.
Okay.
Commissioner
I
Barker?
can deal with it. Yeah, go for it.
what was the reason for ADOT not allowing them to put an additional deceleration lane right there for the new portion leading into Colt?
so we have been in contact with ADOT, and while I cannot speak for their traffic engineers, they have indicated that they would not like anyone to alter what they call their facilities. So, yeah, by that I mean they have indicated that they would not like any developer or the city to alter the character of the roundabout as it has currently been engineered to support traffic. So we have been in discussion with them, talking about the different aspects of where entry into their right-of-way would be. However, that has been their stance, that they would not like any kind of interference, and this is applied to both this project and others throughout the city.
So ADOT could at some point in time acquiesce and allow that, or they're a firm no for the entire build?
So as it is currently stood, because we've only gotten to this point after extensive discussions with ADOT, so while they are not in a position to say no to the project, they would have that ability and have expressed that they would not implement a deceleration lane or change to their right-of-way. Whether or not they could one day acquiesce, that would be within their purview as for their traffic engineers. However, this project has been determined with them that it can move forward, that as it is currently stood, it does not affect their facilities there. So if that provides any clarification.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously the more and more houses we put in here, there's going to be a stronger need to widen this whole area. At least that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Somewhere down the road, maybe the north side's going to be developed, and all of that's going to have to be changed. I can't see that being just a single lane roundabout forever. So, okay.
Commissioner Barker?
Yeah, so Winchester dead ends there, right? At the
Currently, yes.
the
So
north side?
At Scenic.
So
No,
right,
it
right now,
goes
they're,
up- It goes up the
Goes
north,
up.
or the west side of the development,
Does it go in there?
yeah.
No, I
Good
mean,
dead
currently
ends
it
at
dead
Scenic,
ends,
yeah.
doesn't it?
right now,
Yeah.
there really is nothing that, I
Right.
believe, if you're asking where it dead ends, I believe it dead ends at Scenic.
But
They will
the
be
idea
required
is
to-
to continue it, is that correct?
Yes.
And
So
it will
in-
continue to the
Yes,
northwest point there.
that's correct.
Okay.
Are they actually gonna put a road in?
They will be required to improve
Yeah.
their portion of it, yes. So, or their half street. That has been also a subject of discussion in terms of how the neighboring parcel to the west, the Pinal County Park parcel, in terms of where a driveway might go. We've tried to work with our Parks and Rec department in order to determine exactly how that might be. Some of that is, while the applicant will be required to improve their half section of the road, exactly how Winchester going north forms is somewhat determined by how the park parcel and retention parcel is developed, so.
And then with the B1 and that one section of RSGR up there, are those owned by the same, do we know?
So these 3 parcels are owned by the same owner.
Okay. That makes it a little easier, so we don't have like an individual owner hanging across, because then my concern would be how do we get all the way from
Right.
this point across?
Yep. But it does cut that completely off, in a sense.
It limits, it really limits.
It really limits it as far as being a viable B commercial parcel in the
Yes.
future.
Well, it's already.
But it's
limited.
already boxed in, so it's
Yeah.
pretty well screwed. Yeah.
One way to put
With
it.
that being an RSGR there, are they entitled, where would the driveway, let's say they decide to build a house there?
Do you mean this existing one right here?
Mm-hmm.
So there actually is an existing driveway. This has been something, it's a very small driveway that ADOT itself built. They've indicated it would only be allowed for a single-family home. Anything developed further than that, because this has been a topic of discussion. So hypothetically, were commercial to be built here, especially as they are the owner, ADOT has indicated that they would not approve of any greater use than a single home for this property. So while there's an existing driveway for this RSGR parcel, were it to ever be developed with just one home, they would need to work out some kind of secondary or some alternate configuration, as we understand in our discussions with ADOT.
But if it goes single family, they're guaranteed.
There is one,
It's a dedicated.
They're guaranteed access.
yeah,
at least.
there is one already existing and improved driveway.
That's just my concern. If, let's say the B1 gets developed and that just hangs there, what are we stuck with? They do have access. That was just my concern. Anyone else?
Just for clarity, I think you answered it, but when this is done, Winchester will be pushed up to that corner. There will be a road there.
It will be pushed up to here, yes.
Yeah, okay.
It will not extend into the roundabout, but it will extend to here.
I didn't see any traffic studies in here. Have we looked at the impact? Because in between Superstition South to Old West Highway, the only streets that exit out of this area from Tomahawk to Idaho are Junction and Superstition. And we're the only east-west corridors through there. And we're talking about, we haven't even seen the impact of the first 150 houses.
Right.
And now we're talking another 158 homes in here. You know, what's the thought process on all this additional traffic to where we only have Junction or Superstition to exit east, to the west at that point? I doubt very much traffic's gonna head further east. I think we have sufficient flow north-south, but east-west we're kinda boxing us in, and I think we have other developments kind of coming in south of here that we won't come to planning and zoning or anything because they're already zoned. And there's projects tentatively on the board for some high density stuff coming in here as well, which are gonna stress the east-west artery as well. Have we looked at any kind of traffic? Has the city planned anything for all this additional flow? What's the plan?
So the applicant will be able to speak to to a second traffic study, which I believe they have record of. We did receive a revised as of this August traffic study, or June or August. August is when I received it, which was updated with the assumptions and inclusions for phase one. The applicant will have to speak to with the Havenly Superstition. The applicant will have to speak to what's going on with the Havenly Scenic. Regarding the question of a completely comprehensive, looking at everything new and upcoming, I don't believe that has been part of the criteria of the traffic studies, in part because as the studies have looked at the current traffic flow, that is something we can look further into as we try and examine how, as a whole in this area, there have been a lot of projects that have been approved and not yet built out, and we are aware, and it has been a topic that we've looked of research and discussion of seeing how these things might
We
interact.
know Scenic can never go through because it actually used to go through, and
Right, and they closed it off.
terminated that on purpose.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm just worried about overloading that east flow. And then especially with the roundabout up there where we don't really have control as a city.
Zero control.
Right, so we can't really expand Superstition too much. And then the other question is with having two entrances on Superstition there in the mornings trying to get out of there, you know, you got two sets trying to make lefts there. I mean, has the city looked at this a little and?
Yes. So it's been the topic of a lot of discussion regarding the second entrance onto Superstition Boulevard. There were different ways at which it was approached because of the existing Colt Road. There was only so much we could do in terms of blocking them out or in terms of realigning things. It is probably the best release to still have something there. There were different proposals, such as rerouting all of the traffic through one exit, which would require some kind of cross-access agreement or some kind of opening between some vehicular opening between the two projects. There's different ideas that were discussed. However, it was determined that with the existing road and with the existing situation and the different possible legal avenues that could have been determined, that this probably was the best that we could do regarding having access on Superstition from this project.
I follow up to, if, let's say in the future, we determine this is too much congestion for here, where would we be allowed to put a traffic light in as a city? Would we be able to put one at the entrance to that, or would it have to go down further?
When you say the entrance, you mean
To
like
the new proposal,
right here?
Colt Road, essentially. Or was that too close?
I believe it is too close to the ADOT, what they call their access control area.
Right.
And part of their right of way. So I believe we are limited and would not be able to put one right there at that spot.
Right, so if we did, the only place we could ever put one to help relieve some of this congestion from these 2 points dumping out on there would be at the prior approved one.
I believe so.
Would that be far enough out of that controlled point?
That would probably need to be coordinated between Public Works and ADOT, because it's not just about ADOT right-of-way, it's also a certain influence area. And in recent discussions with our Public Works folks, ADOT is kind of reaching even out further, you know, how close they would prefer entrances to be from their right-of-way or the end of their right-of-way and their other influence areas. And of course, there would have to be traffic studies, traffic warrants, that kind of stuff to determine the most appropriate location for a stoplight. Given that the neighborhood to the east of here, by and large, is low density, that would be a very interesting question.
Right. Well, I'm just worried about everything that's coming in south of here.
Right.
That is gonna be coming in, because I think you're gonna get more flow up Royal Palm and across, just the amount that we're dumping in here.
The guess is that.
And, you know, I ain't saying we're gonna have to put a light in right now, but if we determined at some point we needed, where would be the closest we could put one is my question, kinda.
My guess would be that if you're gonna put a light in, it'll be at Royal Palm.
Which necessarily won't relieve these guys as much.
Well, it would affect them because it would give them,
coming out of there.
it would give them the a break in any traffic flow, but, and then at that same time, you're probably looking at extending Superstition to 4 lanes. But that's just, that's probably way down the line.
Well, I know, we have a lot of homes going into this area
Yeah.
that we haven't even seen any of the impact. We got over 300 between these two.
Yep, and then you got a bunch of them to the south.
Right, which are coming as well.
Yep.
So.
Chair Hanchey, just a couple points. The majority of the homes that we will be seeing in the future will be located south. Their access points will most likely be on Junction and on Idaho. So relatively nearby, but not adding to, I guess, the congestion on Superstition.
Right.
And then just looking at the site plan, of course, there's an entrance on Superstition, there's one on Scenic. I think a resident will have to make kind of a logical decision where their unit is placed. If I'm just by looking at the site plan, if their unit is probably south of kind of this boundary here, they will most likely use Scenic because that's kind of their nearest entrance or exit. If their unit kind of is kind of on the northern side, they will mostly use Superstition, but it seems like, it appears that the majority of the units are located on the southern part of the site. So it looks like the majority of the traffic will be located off of Scenic.
Right, but then we're also, now we gotta drop down and look at Junction, and Junction dumps out right there by Fry's. And at certain times right now, that is very congested and hard to turn out of Idaho, especially making a left there. Which probably most people would wanna make a left off of Junction onto Idaho to go down to Superstition Freeway. So, again, we're dumping all that, whether they take Winchester down or Royal Palm down.
Yeah, and Commissioner Chair, this is a, one of those good problems to have, I would say, in a downtown, that we want this type of density. Density, of course, fuels the success of the local businesses, and it also encourages people to walk. So in terms of the future project that will have access to Junction, staff has encouraged that that access so people could walk to Fry's and kind of the local commercial development. We are hoping that due to the proximity of this project, Havenly Scenic and Superstition, some of the residents will also use kind of the local amenities and trails systems to access those commercial developments and alleviate some of the vehicular traffic concerns.
Right, but correct me if I'm wrong too, a lot of what we were hoping commercial-wise that would go in along Idaho there, I think it's now leaning towards more residential, high-density residential, and we're not gonna have that commercial so much there, other than what we already have established in the Fry's Center or...
Commissioner Chair, correct. So directly north of Fry's mostly will be residential, but we have the old hotel site that is currently under pre-application review for a commercial site. So very exciting things to come. So there will be a balances of uses, and we are making sure through the site plan process that each of the sites connect and provide pedestrian amenities.
Right. Yeah, I'm just worried about what, the city planning for this traffic. I mean, we really gotta take a hard look at this area because we're putting a lot of traffic in here that we haven't seen any impact from yet.
Yeah.
So, and then the next, 2 years, it'll probably really explode and, I'd like to plan for it.
Of course.
Another question?
Commissioner Cross?
Weird thing, on Google Earth satellite view, it shows that Colt actually continues south, and even though it's dirt road or dirt, is that a dedicated road all the way down to Scenic?
It is not.
It curves off at an angle on satellite view.
So,
Obviously,
I know what you're referring to.
Was
yeah.
it dedicated at one point in time, or is it just was conceptual, and that's why it's on here?
It never was dedicated, and as it actually stands, only the, adjacent to this northmost parcel, only that section of Colt Road is actually dedicated right away.
Okay.
The other two properties have an easement on it for roadway purposes. It does end right here. There is nothing that extends further south. However, knowing what you're talking about on Google Maps and Google Earth, I believe that that was just something that their van kind of sketched out, because having driven down this myself, there's a bit of a dirt turn in order to kind of turn around. However, that was not actually part of the street or any kind of approved roadway.
Okay.
It does stop at this property.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Nick. Yeah, we're gonna go to public hearing. So at this time, I'm gonna open it up to the public, since it is a public hearing. Ma'am, would you please come up and state your name and address, and you are limited to 5 minutes.
Do you know, do we need to change the source?
Hey, Matt, are you listening?
This doesn't count in your time, so don't worry.
So while they're figuring that out, I'll tell you who I am.
Oh, you just wait and we'll do it all at once. That way we can keep track of everything.
Projector
It's an HDMI cable running through.
Well, I think it's over there where he's playing with it. I thought there was something down there that you have to hit.
Oh, you just turned us off.
Okay, that's what I would have done. I'm glad you did it, not me.
coming on?
Guess we're adjourned.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Deep in blue. No, that wasn't me.
Okay, all right.
Not getting it.
Focus, focus.
Oh, please.
There we go.
There we go. Whoops, turn
There.
it the other way.
Can we bring it in?
Turn it around. There you
There.
go.
Thank you. Thank you.
There.
Thank you.
I was gonna recommend that.
Bring it in a little bit, huh? Okay, thank you.
You can look at it right here too.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's way past my bedtime, but I'm here. My name is Brenda McAllister, and I live on Scenic Street, to be exact, 724 East Scenic Street. There are 4 of us between Palm Street, Royal Palm, and Scenic Street before we get to Winchester. 3 of them are manufactured, and I'm a stick-built home. When I moved out there, it was country on property where horses were riding out there all the time. Now I have the property in back of my property there where all the big trucks and so forth are going for that Havenly Superstition project. And they start at 6 a.m. And there's going to be a lot of traffic there. So now they want to do the Superstition Scenic. Can you imagine the traffic on my road? There's only 3 of us. Well, there's only 2 of us that don't have city water. When I bought my property, I looked into it. They wanted $66,000. My neighbor lady, she's only been there about 6 months. She looked into it. They wanted $80,000 from her. Now, the fellow on the other side of her to the west, I understand that Havenly made a deal with him, and they gave him city water. Is that not true?
No, it's Arizona Water Company, it's a private water company. It's
I
not
understand
city
that, but according to Bill, they are going to put it in for him free of charge. So there's only 2 of us on that road that does not have city water. But the congestion on Scenic Street, my home it's up for sale. It was valued 6 months ago at $850,000. Not a taker. It is down to $739,000, and I have no takers. Yes, it's affected my home property. And the traffic, they want to put all these rental homes. Well, this Superstition Scenic, a one-bedroom is going to go for $1,500. It's 722 square feet. Now, who can afford that? I simply can't on my Social Security. I wouldn't even qualify. The point of the matter is there's more in review just south of me, across the street. More rentals, apartments, townhomes, etc. Where does it stop? There's a water shortage going on now. And we just keep letting the rentals come in, letting the rentals come in. It's time to stop and take a step back. Walk to Fry's, my goodness, they better buy just a package of hot dog buns because you're going to have to carry it back. I don't think so. So it's bad now even trying to find a parking place at Fry's, let alone with these projects, if they get approved, finding a parking place now. Then. So I asked you to consider too much building going on too soon, to have just step back and see what's happening with these things that are going on now. We've got the water shortage, and my property's taken a big hit, and it's not what I signed up for when I bought my property. Do any of you live around the roundabout?
We're not allowed to answer questions.
Okay, well, it probably doesn't affect any of you, but it's affected me immensely. So I thank you for your time, and it's way past my bedtime. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak at this time from the public? Hearing none, seeing none, I'm going to close out the public. At this time, I'd like to invite the builder representative to speak. Yeah.
I want to take that one home.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Brendan Ray, 1850 North Central, here on behalf of the applicant, Chris Hundelt and Keystone Homes. We're certainly excited to be here to talk to you tonight about a sister development to the one that is immediately east of it. I will not, for the sake of time, go through the presentation that I had planned, which is just simply a kind of belt and suspenders presentation to what Nick did. Nick's done a great job in his presentation and the staff report. We're grateful to be here, excited to have this, excited to work with them. This is the exact identical development to the one that you all saw almost a year ago. It was, I think, September of last year that I was before you on Havenly Superstition. The only differences was noted is the addition of the two-story homes. And so with that, I'm happy to answer questions. One of the things that I do want to touch on at your, with your permission, deals with the traffic issue in the question. If you may recall, a year ago, and I've got my traffic engineer, Don Cartier, with CivTech, who's more than happy to speak. But a year ago, we had prepared, even though it wasn't necessarily required, a traffic study in connection with the Superstition development. As we presented those findings to this group, there was some questions of are our numbers really good numbers in light of, you know, what are we using for a growth factor? What are we looking at that particular one? And so as a result of that conversation, we went back, expanded the scope of the area that we were looking at to study, and level of service in particular. We expanded that scope to look at it. The one intersection that was not included in that expanded scope was Winchester and Scenic. And so we're in the process of updating that traffic report. Again, not required as part of the submittal, taking it upon ourselves to do that. So we're going to do that. But Don can speak better than I can, but we were very aggressive in our growth, very aggressive in bumping up even a higher guess, if you will, than what the manuals would require in terms of winter visitors and stuff like that. So Don can certainly speak to that, but that was something that was looked at. And I know that part of the conversation dealt with our immediate development, what we're doing, and what the larger picture is as some of these other developments come online for properties that are already zoned RM2. And so with respect to the regional, I can't address that. I can just stick to my scope, stuff like that. But I do know that with growth, it pays for development through, I believe, system development fees, through half-street improvements that are required to these roadways. So even though you might not see a particular development come forward in the future on property that is zoned, they nevertheless will still be required to pay those impact fees, to make their half-street improvements, and to do all those things that don't currently exist in this area today. And so with that, I can go into a lot more details, but I wanted to just touch on that traffic issue. We knew it was a concern the last time. We're still seriously studying it, and again, the growth that we had factored into that, while it won't take into account these 158 additional residences that we're doing, at least Dawn, and she can come up and speak, believes that the level of service in the area will continue to function as it has, at good levels of service that is acceptable to the city, to professional traffic engineers as they look at it. I can't stand up here and say we're not going to put any new traffic on the road because with growth, but we certainly know that we are consistent with the general plan, consistent with the vision that the city has for the downtown area. And so with that, ask for your recommendation for approval. Again, I've got Dawn here. We can talk about other additional traffic things if we need to. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
I got a question. Why can't we incorporate these two together for the entrance?
Thank you. Great question. And the reason is twofold. Number one, different financing. I've got a different set of different loan construction, different lenders, different financing that was already in place, approved for phase one. And so because of that, and because of where we are in that process, if we had known that there was the possibility of this when we started down the path with Superstition, we would have made accommodations to incorporate this development so there would be that vehicular connection. That was a question that was asked of me as I walked in here tonight. And so it is a function of financing. Lenders on one development aren't necessarily the same lenders on this development, and the timing, all that. One of the things that we have done, though, is you can kind of see the open space area, and I will go back. There is this open space area. There is this open space area that is right here. Mm-hmm. There is no wall there. That is truly open for pedestrians and golf cart, for people to move freely between these two developments. So because of things outside the scope of this case and stuff with the financing, we couldn't get the vehicular connection, but we've done as best we can, given that I've just got two different developments.
Question, Commissioner Cross?
So you're anticipating this having a golf cart community type interaction from one side to the other, or are we looking, because you sold the first phase to us as young professional, possibly predominantly women, young women, et cetera, and now we're talking, seniors driving golf carts back and forth. So
You're not the only people who drive golf carts.
unless they're on the golf course, they're seniors driving golf carts. I'm sorry.
No, it's just because most of the golf carts are in 55 and older communities.
That's true.
You haven't seen, younger communities.
Please enlighten us.
Through the chair, Commissioner Cross, In terms of the target demographics, that has not changed. In terms of the type of people that we see living in it is the exact same type of people that we were talking about on that one. As you know, there are sometimes people that in lieu of having a car and wanting to drive a car all over, they will go ahead and purchase a golf cart to be able to do so. By no means by inferring that I have golf cart access are we saying that this is going to become another winter visitor type development. In fact, unless I'm mistaken, I think there's a stipulation that to that effect, unless I'm mistaken, in the staff report that talks about what it shouldn't be. I could be wrong. I thought I remember reading that, but apparently y'all are looking over my shoulder, so.
Just wanted to clarify the intent behind, Chris Hundelt with Keystone Homes. And,
Have your address?
3931 East Glen Rosa, Phoenix. So, sorry about that. It's, the clarification is just the golf cart path was intended for leasing and maintenance. So it's our property management staff and not intended for residents.
Okay.
And I never really let Brendan know that, so.
But could the residents use it?
I don't think, it's not intended that way. It is strictly for the property management staff to use back and forth.
So you can put up signs for?
I mean,
I can assure you that they can put up signs all they want, and the chances of them being followed are
Sorry for the
zero.
words.
But what if I want to visit my friend who's in the other community? I could walk down that path.
Yes, that's what it's
Right.
for, is to walk, but not to drive a golf cart.
Right, so
That's
it's not
just for me.
intended for
Well,
golf
if I had a
carts.
golf cart in
So,
my garage, I'd drive.
I want to continue on, but get off that subject. Same question for you as the last developer. Are you putting in charging stations for electric vehicles?
Yes, we are, through the chair, yes, we are. And through the chair, Commissioner Barker, yes, we do have a dog park.
No, I saw it in big blue letters.
We do have a dog park as well.
Is that gonna be a dedicated Park Barker?
And the name lends itself.
Time will tell.
Okay,
Commissioner Cantwell?
I'll ask the obvious question. There's 3 parcels off to the northwest. I'm assuming that you have looked into including those and did not for some reason, and I'm just curious if there's any chance that those could be included at a future point.
Sure, through the chair, Commissioner Cantwell, those are, those entire 3 properties, and you can't see it on mine if
You're
we
okay, we know what they are.
Those 3 properties are owned by Hassle. And HUD, as you know, has a number of developments in the community that he's working on. I don't represent HUD, I can't speak for him, but from what has been communicated to us, it's his intention to develop those 3 parcels with commercial uses.
Okay.
That's what's been communicated to us.
That's fine. Just
Yeah, I have a question. Let's say by some miracle you acquire them. Are we gonna end up with a third one with different entrances and everything, or can we make some kind of provision?
I want to stand on the roundabout.
Through the chair, it's certainly your discretion as to what you can and can't require. I don't know that in the scope of what we're doing, that it would change much. We do have, as staff indicated, we are making our half-street improvement on Winchester, heading up our west side of the development. So if by some small, I've learned in the business never to say never, but at least there is an access point dedicated that we are working on along Winchester.
Yeah. So if anything happened, it'd have to go down Winchester, just because we know.
Or you could remove the dog park on the north part there and
No,
relocate the dog park.
no. Shame.
I think you would die.
You want to go to the council?
Any other comment? I'm good. How is your water coming in?
Yeah, so that was a comment that was made by the neighbor. There was never any promise or agreement made with an adjacent property owner that we would deliver them water for free. I'm not the engineer and probably would defer to Chris on where we're getting water. But I know that we've had those discussions and that water is available to be provided through this site. I'm going to guess, Chris, we've got water coming in through Scenic. Is where our water will be pulled from.
So it's Scenic Winchester, it's coming up there. And then how far across your development on Scenic is it gonna extend?
We don't know that yet. I mean, we've just started that application process with Arizona Water. So I mean, we're much further along on our Superstition project, which water's coming from Superstition and some from Royal Palm. But on Scenic, we just are starting that application. We're just anticipating that there is a tap on Winchester and Scenic close to that, so I'm assuming they're gonna ask us to bring it up that way.
And then the current one that's already approved, where, does that come down Royal Palm, how far?
It's about halfway.
Okay, through that development? Okay. I just wanted to find out.
Yep.
If it got any closer to them, it might help them in the future.
Will probably reduce their cost.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if it gets
Be more-
closer,
yeah.
it won't take it away, but it might help them somewhat. Unless they really wanna be nice and extend it to them.
I have another question.
Commissioner Cross.
What is your take on the claim of the resident that spoke out here tonight regarding the value of their property diminishing at this point?
Yeah, through the chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Cross, one of the things that we've seen across the valley are a number of things relative to home prices. We've seen a steady incline that has continued to grow. But what I've also seen, and I saw a report that came out, I believe within the past couple of weeks, that home prices have declined 13% in 1 month.
Okay.
And so it's something that, you know, with the inflation costs and what the federal government and the central, and what the feds are trying to do with raising the rate, we also see interest rates continuing to climb. I think that last I looked, I think they were over 6% or something in there. So when I have my lines start going like this, with interest rates and home values, it makes a lot of challenge. What I've been told generally in the course of development that affects property values is really the unknown, and when something remains undeveloped. Here I have a quantifiable development that is tens of millions of dollars to do and is high quality. And so I've been told, and there are other people smarter than me at MIT and Harvard that have conducted studies to show the impact of multifamily, usually traditional apartments, but multifamily on surrounding single home values. And what they found in those instances, again, I'd defer to them, I'm just telling you what I've read in the reports, is that either there's no effect or a positive effect on home values when it comes to that. And that was, again, not looking specifically at this type of product, but generally talking about multifamily. But, you know, I certainly, I live in a well-developed area, and I've seen the home value, the reports that I get, my home value has plummeted over the last few months as well.
Have we any idea how much those, she said she recently bought that home a few years ago. Do we have any idea what that home was purchased for? And is it, you know, she claims it was $800,000 now, or, you know, 2 months ago. And, you know, did she buy it at $500,000 and has realized a $300,000 gain and now a $100,000 loss? Or, you know, does Rudy, do you know? Does anybody know? Okay.
I don't know.
If it's the house I think it is, they built that house there.
Yeah,
It was raw land.
You look it up on the county pages.
Yeah.
So I don't think they bought it pre-established, so it'd be kind of hard to determine that factor.
Okay.
Since they built it from the ground
True.
up.
Somebody once told me, and I'm sure you all well know this, that something is worth what people will pay you for.
Right.
Exactly.
Especially antiques. I'm good, thank you.
Anyone else, any questions? Commissioner Barker's happy with her Bark Park. Anyone else? All right.
You're actually going to let him get through this without having a question about how you're going to have horse access to
He already
his property?
promised it.
Well,
He already asked it.
It's already promised.
I already asked about the southern
I-
part, the northern part, because of the way your entrance is. I assume that you're not gonna be able to put the horse pathway right in front of your gated, it's gonna start on the first phase, not on the second phase.
Correct, and yeah, through the chair, Commissioner Cross, that is correct. But what staff did indicate we are doing is on the south side. If you'll recall, there was, we were coming, and that's a horrible straight line. We were coming this way, but then we also had a pedestrian path and multi-use path going this way. We have continued that to where it goes south, and that's not to scale or in the correct location. And then along there as well, with the idea that people could walk, ride, bike, whatever, from the east to the west.
Well, that was also kind of left wide enough if a horse trail could be put in there as well,
Yeah,
right?
it's gonna be multi-use.
Mhm. Yep.
So,
Yeah, if there's any way you can, bring phase one horse trail on the north side into that would be great. I know it's pretty tight right there, but
I know we've got it, and
right to there.
we've got it right there. Is the question along?
Yeah, would you have a little bit right there or not?
It's on the west side of our entrance. Let us take a look at that. I can promise you that we'll look at it. I can't make promises. I've got to look at that. As you heard, there was considerable discussion about ADOT.
Yeah.
What ADOT controls and doesn't control. So let us take a look at that, and if it's something that we can do, we'll let staff know, and they can let you know, or
I'd
we'll find
appreciate
time
that.
to talk before then.
Good.
anyone else any questions?
Good.
All right. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Any discussion amongst ourselves? Input? Opinions?
I like it, so.
All right.
Wanna do
Good.
findings of fact?
Findings of fact?
Okay, findings of fact. One, that a better design cannot be achieved by applying the strict provisions of the underlying zoning district. I think we're in agreement with that.
I think it passes.
Two, that strict adherence to the provisions of the zoning ordinance is not required in order to ensure the health, safety, welfare of the inhabitants of the proposed development. I think we're in good shape there. And three, that strict adherence to the ordinance is not required to ensure that the property values of adjacent properties will not be reduced.
True.
True.
True. Therefore, I would move that the Planning and Zoning Commission, let's see. Yeah. Okay, I would move the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the approval of Plan Development Rezoning Case P-22-88-PZ, a request by Chris Hundelt of Keystone Homes for an approximate 158-unit rental residential community to be primarily composed of single-family type homes with some duplexes and carriage units, to be named the Havenly Scenic. Havenly Scenic, excuse me. Yes, we are not God's waiting room. Generally located at the southwest corner of Superstition Boulevard and Colt Road, from RSGR, General Rural Low Density Single Family Detached Residential, and RM2 High Density Multifamily Residential, to RM2 PD High Density Multiple Family Residential by Plan Development, subject to the following, subject to the conditions, and there are 12 of them.
Second.
All right, Rudy, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, who was the second?
Commissioner Cross.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
No.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 against. This moves forward with your recommendation of approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now we have the second one.
Need to read findings of fact on the second one.
Yeah, that's what I was looking, I haven't made it there yet.
You want me to read them?
Sure. Thank you for volunteering.
Findings of fact, that a better design cannot be achieved by applying the strict provisions of the underlying zoning district.
Good.
Number two, that strict adherence to the provisions of the zoning ordinance is not required in order to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the proposed development.
Sure. Does this even apply? All we're doing away with is that road, right?
That's all we're doing.
And modifying the one.
And number three, that strict adherence to the ordinance is not required to ensure that property values of adjacent properties will not be reduced.
Agreed.
Yep.
So,
right.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please do.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the approval of Plan Development Major Amendment Case P-22-89-PZ, a request by Chris Hundelt of Keystone Homes to modify the conditions of approval of Ordinance Number 1518, requiring the improvement and dedication of Colt Road, replacing the conditions of approval in Ordinance Number 1518 with the following conditions of approval, 1 through 12.
14.
1 through 14, excuse me.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second by Commissioner Barker. Rudy, can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
No.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 against. Once again, moves forward to council with a recommendation of approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. All right. Old business, I don't see any. New business,
Nothing this evening, Mr. Chairman.
all right. Any information and reports?
No, sir.
Director's report, no.
Next time, we will, at the last meeting, you requested a direction to staff. We're going to bring that formally for your direction regarding the, us taking a look at guest parking.
Okay.
And there's a couple of other things that, that we've discussed with the council member. We might be bringing those back to you as well. So, next meeting.
All right, thank you, Rudy. Selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose. Anybody?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Barker.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on October 25th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard. In the event there are no items to be brought forward to the commission, these meetings may be canceled. Notification of cancellation properly posted and the commission notified by staff.
Second.
Rudy, I got a motion with a second. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. Going to adjourn the meeting at 9:49.